Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Top 10 Songs. As you can see, we are back at the Brewery at Orange County Hops with my good friend, Mike Antonelli. So, as you've probably already seen by the description of this video, we are here today to talk about the music of Alice Cooper. So, something that a couple of you have mentioned that you wanted to see a few months back, but it wasn't until Mike came to me a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, are you interested in doing a show on Alice Cooper? So you want to kind of give a little explanation as to why that came about.
Well, I was brewing, and we were talking about your show with my friend Jim, and Jim said, you know, I want you to check out this song, and he directed me to listen to an Alice Cooper song, and I said, oh yeah, I've heard that song many times. I said, I really didn't know that was actually an Alice Cooper song. So he said, yeah, he's a really complex artist. Maybe you guys could do an Alice Cooper show. So that's when I suggested to you, and of course here we are. So yeah. You're all for it. And
I'm all for it. I'm a big fan.
Once again, Pete, you have a way of giving me assignments that are very tough.
There you go. That's what I'm here for.
I appreciate that, but you know, at some point the student needs a break. I'd like to do an easy show.
Okay. Well, we got some stuff that we've been talking about that's in the works. So we'll get something a little bit easier.
I appreciate the challenge, as it were.
Yeah.
The challenge.
But it's all in fun, right? So we get two friends who like to talk about music, and we drink beer while we're doing it, and hopefully you guys like it as well. So, again, it wouldn't be Mike if he just, threw me a little curveball at the last minute to say, hey, can we deviate a little bit from the top 10 song formula? And I'm like, okay, what do you got in mind? He says, so how about we do a top 5 of the fairly popular, obvious choices, and then we do a top 10 of deep cuts and tracks and things like that. And I was all for that. Because that is a way for me to satisfy all of you out there to throw in the songs that everybody's going to be like, why didn't he not include that in his top 10? That's the greatest Alice Cooper song ever. Now I can throw those tunes in my top 5 obvious choices, and Mike as well. And then I can give you the deep cuts in the top 10, and as well as Mike. So that's what we're going to do. And I think it's a good idea. And I'm glad you kind of suggested that.
And I'm interested to see how close we come to matching, of course, right. As your viewers know by now. We do not compare notes at all before this taping. And
he has not seen this. I have not seen that.
Right. I have my own list, The Best of Alice Cooper, according to Mike. The original title.
And, of course, once you've watched this whole video, and I urge you to watch the whole video first before you start commenting, saying, well, what about this song? What about that song? Watch the whole video, listen to both our picks, and then give us your top 10. Okay, that's the way this should work. So before you start typing, watch and listen first, okay? I'm going to let Mike lead it off. So we're going to start with the more hits, the obvious choices first. So we'll do, back and forth like we normally do. So Mike will start with his number 5, and then I'll do my number 5, and then we'll go on from there. So
okay. So here we go. I just threw you a curveball.
Okay.
Because I didn't do them in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 order, because to me, they're all in the same popular vein for me, so it was really hard for me to decide, well, what's number 5, what's number 4. Good so argument. I made my list in chronological order.
Okay, that works.
So for my number 5, I'm going to go with the most recent song that I picked for my, so this is going to upset a lot of people because they're going to say, well, that's the most recent date. From 1977, from Lace and Whiskey, the song You and Me. That's my number 5.
Wow. Okay. So one of his ballads.
Oh, yeah.
And then he had a lot of them, and some really good ones, too.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a good choice. That's not on any of my list. Wow. But I do I don't know, how did I miss that song? Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a great choice. So my number 5, the title track to Welcome to My Nightmare, which ironically we were just watching on the big screen in here as I walked in a little while ago. Mm-hmm. So that's one of his more popular tunes, a cool, kind of lurid, spooky tune, and but a fairly big hit for him. And a song that I really like, but not one that would have wound up on my top 10. Mm-hmm. Okay, but since we're talking about the more hits, radio-friendly stuff, it's an obvious choice for me.
And a very kind of landmark album for Alice as well. In 1975, his first solo album, and a really cool concept. Kind of introduced us to the macabre side
Yeah.
of Vincent, who assumed the character Alice,
yeah.
and now is known as Alice.
And a lot of kudos to producer Bob Ezrin, obviously, who worked on that album with him, who's done so many great albums through the years with a lot of great artists, and I think he was integral to kind of shaping or help Alice shape the music that was to come for many years. So, good pick. Your next one.
Okay, so number 4. I'm going, like I said, chronologically in reverse order. Number 4 from 1975, from that same album that we talked about, Welcome to My Nightmare, Only Women Bleed. Now think about the timing of 1975, and this is a song about spousal abuse or abuse to women, and a very poignant topic now in 2019. But back in 1975, kind of risque territory for a singer and a musician.
Probably couldn't get away with that today, right? And I know that tune was covered a couple times, if I remember correctly, by other artists later on. But yeah, it's
not a big radio hit for the band.
At a time where they were
actually for Alice,
right? Yeah. But at a time where they were cranking out more like heavier material, it's like it was great how every couple albums he would drop in these really cool ballads, and the general public just really picked up on it. In fact, funny story. I don't know, a year or two ago, I was having a conversation with my wife and my sister-in-law, and we were talking about Alice Cooper, and they were like, Alice Cooper. All they can think about is Alice Cooper, the guy with the makeup and all, the hanging and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I started mentioning to them some of the hit singles he had, and we talked about Only Women Bleed and the other song you mentioned, and they're like, oh, that was Alice Cooper? I had that on a K-Tel, top AM hits album back in the day. So again, there's a lot of people who are not into like harder rock who remember those Alice Cooper ballads, right? So that was a way for him and the band to kind of expose themselves to other audiences. So pretty interesting. All right, so my number 4, another title track to School's Out. Mm-hmm. Again, it's an anthem that everybody likes, right? Growing up, that was like one of the most popular tunes of the era, and I've always liked School's Out. Again, a song that might, in normal circumstances, might not make my top 10, although I do love it a lot. Mm-hmm. He's just got so many great songs, but if we're talking about just the popular stuff, hell yeah, it's a top 5, easily. Yeah. Easily. So, what do you got?
Okay, so from I'm up to number 3, from 1973. From $1 Billion Babies, No More Mr. Nice Guy. Again, just one of those really catchy tunes that, and I think it's probably something that he performs live a lot.
Oh, he always has. Yeah. And how about that guitar lick in that song? Genius in its simplicity, but it's so catchy. I love that tune. So more on that later, but.
Okay.
All right, so for my number 3 from the same album that Mike just mentioned, the title track to $1 Billion Babies. All right, I'm saying it right now, and you're gonna. If I didn't say this right now, you'd know it when you hear all my other picks. That is my favorite Alice Cooper album. I love $1 Billion Babies. That for me is the apex of the original Alice Cooper group. With Alice and Glenn Buxton and Michael Bruce and Mr. Dunaway and Neil Smith.
That was heavy material. Just really, every song after song after song.
The whole album
is fantastic.
There was something about that band that was just really special. It's like they weren't the world's greatest musicians, but they were very good. They didn't write the most mind-blowing songs, but they wrote great songs. Their music was like the ultimate, they were like the ultimate garage rock band, but they also blended elements of punk and pop and, hard rock and even early metal and then the shock rock thing and the lurid horror lyrics and what have you. I mean, such a really different, great band. And I think that, for me, that album was like the third of a string of really sensational albums, maybe 4, that are just, I don't think anything Alice did solo afterwards topped those Alice Cooper group albums, those 3 or 4 albums. But anyway, that's my number 3 pick, $1 Billion Babies. Love that song.
Okay, and so now we're going to have a little intersection. So my number 2 pick from 1972, the title track from School's Out.
Yeah.
Can't miss.
Yep, absolutely.
Although I'm sure there's somebody out there that's going to comment, how could you pick that?
Yeah. There's plenty of people. Yeah, it's just the way it is. So great choice. It's got to be on this list. So
we pick what we pick.
That's right. All right, for my number 2, which I'm glancing over at your list, and I'm pretty shocked you didn't pick it, but that's okay. I'm 18. Another early anthem.
The song that put them on the map.
Yes, absolutely.
It was released as a single. Originally.
Pretty heavy tune for the time, also.
Yeah. Well, you just stole my number 1, Pete. So, thanks for that. Moving on.
Next. All right,
that's good.
Number 1.
You have number 1.
My number 1 was your number what? Number 3? What was or number 2?
No More Mr. Nice Guy?
So my number 1 is No More Mr. Nice Guy. Okay, again. Probably that if we were not doing this like top 5 and top 10, popular versus non-popular, I think No More Mr. Nice Guy probably would have been either my number 1 or number 2 regardless. I love No More Mr. Nice Guy. I think that is like such a cool tune. And it's my number 1. So No More Mr. Nice Guy for me. I'm 18 for Mike.
Well, again, I said in the beginning, I can't put them in order of 1 through 5.
Right, so he's going in chronological.
I'm going in chronological. So the first hit they had for me, these are this is the hit parade for me.
Okay. All right.
1 through 5 greatest hits in my Alice Cooper.
But there's no denying how great of a tune I'm 18 is, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I think, and that,
absolutely.
For a lot of you folks who are watching, who maybe are a little bit younger and grew up like in the 90s with the Seattle bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam and all those bands, I think that I'm 18 kind of had a very similar impact in the early 70s with teenagers like Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit had in the 90s for the teenagers of that era. Very, very similar impact, I think. There was something about I'm 18 because I remember, so that album came out, what was that, 1970?
1970. I'm 18.
Yeah.
Well, the single was released in 1970, according to the research that
I was only 4 at the time, but I remember still hearing that song on the radio a couple of years later when I was old enough to really be grasping that type of stuff. And I remember thinking, wow, that's...
And don't forget, that's just, in the Vietnam era, a lot of horrible things were happening to young men when they turn 18.
Yeah, they reach that age, they don't know what their life is in store for them.
So that was a very poignant time period for that song. That's probably why it caught on so much. But again, it's still relevant, I should say, today.
No, I absolutely agree.
And that's what makes a song last. I don't know how many. Should I say this? I was going to get opinionated here for a minute.
Go for it.
I don't know how many Justin Bieber songs we're going to be talking about 30, 40 years from
I
now.
guarantee you 99.9% of our audience will agree with you on that. So I don't think there's any worry about backlash there.
Thank you.
They don't come to this channel to hear about Justin Bieber and Britney Spears and all that kind of nonsense. So,
great.
Yeah. So you can say what you want about Justin Bieber.
Well, I just did. And that's the end of it.
That's the end of that. Back to more Alice.
Will not mention those 2 words. How did those 2 words come out of my lips anyway?
I don't know. It must be the beer, Mike. I don't know.
Must be. The first sip is deadly.
That's right. All right, so now that we got the hit stuff out of the way, let's get into the meat and potatoes of Alice's repertoire. So Mike is going to kick us off with his top 10 Alice Cooper according to Mike, starting in at number 10. What you got?
So I'm going to start off by saying that there was 2 things that struck me when I was listening to the catalog, and as much of it as I could. In the beginning, I knew the more popular songs. I didn't have a great depth of experience and knowledge about Alice Cooper, so I did a lot of listening, and I listened to a lot of things, and I could pretty much say that what I was looking for is songs of Alice Cooper, the band, that had the co-writers that some of them you just mentioned in the early period. And then after that, songs of Alice Cooper, the singer, that were unique in a certain way that didn't sound like just a filler or a copy of another great groove or a guitar-heavy song. That there was a lot of his songs, I thought, in the 80s that were just kind of boilerplate. The words were great, but the melodies were not as catchy. So I went for the more obscure kind of things, the things that artistically resonated with me as an artist. I wanted to hear the things that were truly unique to that band or that man, the soul of what he was trying to come across with. So I'm going to have some things on here that people really don't say, why did he pick that? Well, listen to it, and then maybe you'll figure out why I picked it. So number 10, from the album of 1977, Lace and Whiskey. Again, this is Alice Cooper, the singer. King of the Silver Screen. Just kind of a song making fun of Hollywood and all the imagery and stuff on the motion picture genre.
That's a great pick, and I instantly thought of my buddy Steve from Connecticut, who is a big fan of a lot of the Alice material that kind of had a little bit of like kind of Broadway kind of show tunes flavor to it, because he did a lot of that actually. And that's a fantastic pick. I got to commend you for that. It's a good tune.
Thank you.
A very cool tune, a very different tune from a very underappreciated album, I think. That's a good one.
Well, that's the same album that You and Me came from.
Yeah. There's some good tunes on that album, actually. Yeah, underrated album. Good one. My number 10 is from the Killer album, one of my favorites, Under My Wheels.
Oh, there you go again.
I mean, it's just such a great tune, The telephone is ringing.
And I liked that, listening to that too, and just a basic rock and roll.
It's just basic rock and roll boogie tune, right?
Boogie tune, and they got a nice little sax solo in there, so I'm partial to the horns. Anytime Alice Cooper, a glam rock or a heavy metal rock band, plays a song with a saxophone in it, my ears are going to perk up.
Yep.
So
it's a fun tune. I always loved it.
It was fun, and a great kind of little story thing, got you under my skin kind of thing.
Yeah,
you're under my wheels.
Great album. I'd love that. Again, one of those albums that is for me classic Alice Cooper. Killers and School's Out and Love It to Death and $1 Billion Babies for me are just like. That's like, for me, the holy grail of Alice Cooper. And that's that band again. It's just so good. So what do you got for number 9, Mike?
All right, number 9. From Alice's first solo, Alice the singer, the first solo studio recording from Welcome to My Nightmare, Cold Ethel. There's a lot of really creepy, eerie songs, but this is a song about making love to a corpse, I think. So that's a little weird.
It is a lot of weird. It's a lot of weird.
And the way he describes the thing, and with the lyrics, it's really funny to listen to and catchy. Cold Ethel.
But the crazy thing about that tune is, as lurid as those lyrics are, that song is so upbeat. Whereas a lot of his other like really kind of creepy and out there lyrical tunes are like downbeat and doomy and what have you. But that tune, which probably could have been, was not. It's all upbeat and bouncy and a lot of rhythms and just like a really fun tune to listen to.
Tongue in cheek.
Right. So you're grooving on this tune and then you're thinking about, God, these lyrics are just like out of control bad, right? Yeah. It's just like, oh. But that was Alice Cooper in the band,
I like
right?
to play with dead people.
Awesome stuff. That's a great pick. I knew that was going to wind up on your list somewhere because he and I were kind of comparing notes on the phone earlier this week, and we were talking about that tune. I'm like, yeah, Mike's going to pick that one. And it's on my honorable mentions. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Whatever. Anyway. So, again, to keep in line with the kind of really twisted lyrical themes, my number 9 is from $1 Billion Babies, the song Sick Things. And that is a perfect example of what I just talked about, a song with really like kind of just like creepy-ass lyrics, and the music is just like, dun, dun. It's just like down and doomy in the depths of the crypt and what have you, and it's just he's just got this really kind of the way he sings that song is just downright ominous, and
demonic.
I love it. And again, like I already said before, I love $1 Billion Babies. I just love that album. So so that's my number 9. So number 8, back to you.
Number 8. All right, this is a strange pick. This is from 1973's album Muscle of Love.
Another underrated album.
Yeah, probably one of my favorites. I would have to think after listening to all the different songs, but a lot of them I liked on there. This is quirky because it's one of those Hollywood songs. He wrote this song hoping to get it into the James Bond film of the same title, The Man with the Golden Gun. Yeah, all right. Man with a Golden Gun, which was passed over, according to what I read, because they were a day late submitting the tune, so they picked a different tune. But he wrote that tune specifically as his trying his hand at movie soundtrack stuff, and so there's a lot of horn arrangements, there's strings, there's all the kind of things that you're not going to hear in a glam band, and he had like Liza Minnelli as a backup singer. Come on, they're not going to pick that tune. Well,
so what makes that story even more amazing is that Muscle of Love was the last release from the original Alice Cooper band, right? And they basically, that album did not do that well, and they just blew apart, and there was substance abuse problems in the band, whatever. Alice was getting overtures from the record label to, hey, you don't need these guys, you can go out on your own, do your own thing. But I guarantee you, if that song had made it into the movie and became as big as it probably shouldn't have been, that band might have stayed together. It's just amazing how those things happen, right?
Yeah.
So circumstances did not...
Twist of fate.
Right, exactly. So we might have seen the Alice Cooper...
And the moral to that story is, turn your homework in on time, Peter. Don't be late with your assignments. Because you never know what you're giving up.
That is correct. Absolutely.
Be on time.
Be on time. Get it done.
Or you could end up like Alice Cooper, the band, and disband.
Yep, exactly.
Because you were late with your homework.
That's right. So... Good choice.
All
right, next. My number 8 is really the only song that I really love off this album. It's not a terrible album. It's not a great album either, but the title track, well, I guess it's the title track, is just so good. It's so heavy. It's so menacing. From Alice Cooper Goes to Hell, Go to Hell. You can go to hell. It's got a great heavy metal riff on it. It's just a very, very cool tune. Unfortunately, the rest of the album for me is it's okay, but that for me is the highlight, and I've always just loved that song. So that's my number 8. Yeah, it's my number 8.
Really cool pick. Yeah.
Number 7 for Mike.
Number 7. From the album Killer, 1971. The 4th studio album for that band. And I think actually the first 2 albums were produced by Frank Zappa. Am I right?
Yep.
The story that goes with that era where Alice Cooper was actually a backup band and went on tour with Frank Zappa's band for a while.
Yeah, they supported them.
Yeah.
So they were on Frank's record label.
Right. So Frank gave them an advance of like $6,000,
which is nothing,
to do 2 records, and I guess, I don't know if it was an interview with Alice Cooper or it was with Frank, where he said, he went to see them in this venue, and, about 10 minutes or 15 minutes into the show, Frank looked around, and the only people in the show, or in the audience, was Frank.
And the rest of the mothers, probably, right?
No, Frank and Alice's producer at the time, and everybody else that had emptied out. They all left after like 10 minutes of the show. So then Frank said, "Well, that was my sign that I should sign these guys. Because,
the weirder the better, right?
Because nobody gets them.
Yeah,
nobody gets them. Does that sound familiar?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's how they started that relationship. So anyway, where was I? It's from Killer. And it's called Halo of Flies. Which again...
A great song.
Yeah.
An epic song, kind of, for Alice, I guess. 8, 9 minutes long.
And I think that's about prostitution going bad.
I think so, yeah. A lot of kind of changes of mood and what have you in that tune. I'll keep my lips shut, but you haven't heard the last of that song in this little dissertation here.
Okay.
So, a great song and from a great album. So, all right. So my number 7, from Love It to Death, which I love to death. That is actually 3rd album from them. Is It My Body? Again, another just great rock and roll tune from the band with kind of, cool lyrics and just catchy, and it's got some kind of cool hard rock riffing. And
I'm gonna have to go back, to be honest with you, and listen to that one again.
Yeah, good tune. Really fun song. Yeah, really fun song. I dig it. So that's my number 7. Number 6.
So number 6 from $1 Billion Babies, the song "Elected." I mean, I'm not really a political person, and I don't get involved in politics, but I like to hear other people talk about it sometimes.
Yeah, it's just a great tune. I mean, that opening,
yeah,
it's just a great song. And again, I'm going to hear more about that song coming up. So yeah, it's a great tune. Great tune. From a great album, like I've already stated. All right, next, we're going to go back to the Killer album. Back to those kind of creepy-ass lyrics. Dead Babies. A lot of my tunes are the more macabre stuff. I don't know. I just love that stuff. Dead Babies is just a great, memorable, sick-ass tune. I just love it. I really love a lot of the material from that band. Great stuff. And I've always dug that tune. So that's my number 6.
Okay, so we're up to number 5.
Yeah.
So here's where I cheated a little bit.
Okay.
This is my cheat for the day.
Okay. You're allowed. I do it all the time.
We haven't had any cheats
going
on today at all.
I haven't cheated at all. I'm usually the most guilty of it.
And the only reason why I have a cheat here is because I originally picked the song, and when I looked it up, it's not written by Alice Cooper. It's written by the other bandmates. It's the only one from that Alice Cooper band that I could find that was not actually written or wasn't co-written. His name's not listed as a writer on the song. And we already talked about it a little bit. That is Under My Wheels.
Yeah, that's not a cheat. It's the band. So
it's the band.
Yeah,
it's the band song.
That's not a cheat.
So, but since I had, we're talking about Alice Cooper, the singer, so I figured, well, then I could back that up with another number 5.
Okay, hey.
Which was written by Alice Cooper, the singer. And that is the title track from $1 Billion Babies. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, it's a great song. A great song. Yeah. Legendary song. In fact, I'm looking over my top 5 of the the hits and whatnot, and I put that as my number 3. And I'm God, there are some days I probably like that better than I'm 18. I don't know. I love $1 Billion Babies, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, a great pick. A great pick, and it's arguable. It's arguable whether $1 Billion Babies should even be in that hit list that we're doing, right? Now that I think about it, 'cause, it was a radio FM hit. You heard it on the radio, but not. You put a couple of those more ballad that were big hits, and I forgot about those. So I could have easily put $1 Billion Babies, the song, in my top 10. Not so much. Either way, I love it. Whatever list, it doesn't matter. It made it onto one of them, so that's all that matters. So, all right, so my number 5, I'm going to continue on with the Dead and creepy crap, all right, because I love the Dead from $1 Billion Babies.
I see a pattern here emerging, Pete.
I've got issues. I know. I have issues. When it comes to Alice Cooper, I have issues. I love the Dead. It's just such a great song, and when you see him live and he plays that live, it's just it just makes the we were just before we went on air, we were just talking about how to really experience the music of Alice Cooper, you need to go see him live, because these songs take on a totally different light when they perform them on stage. So a song like I Love the Dead, just whether you're watching footage from him doing it in the 70s or you go see him live today, just takes on total new meaning, and you can kind of visualize the whole idea behind the lyrical content. But again, that's my 5th one in a row about dead people and sick things and all that kind of. Well, you had Cold Ethel in yours, so you're not totally exempt from this.
I'm not.
No. So I Love the Dead, my number 5. So we move on to number 4.
Number 4. So here's probably one that you probably could consider one of his in the top 5 popular category. And this one is from the 1989 album Trash, the song Poison.
Yeah. It's a good tune.
You know,
really, it is.
I like the video.
Yeah, it's a really catchy tune. I actually didn't, as you've seen obviously already, with the exception of that song, most of the songs we're talking about are from his 70s material, and basically everything on my list is from that. But I do like a lot of the 80s, 90s, and even the more recent stuff. I'll list a couple of my honorable mentions, but I like that album a lot actually, and that was his big return to, the mainstream. Poison did big business. As a single, it propelled the album, and that video on MTV was played all the time, and that brought Alice back from the dead, basically.
Resurrection.
Resurrection. I mean, in a big way. I mean, that because that was, for Alice, that was kind of like his jump into the hair metal, arena metal, rock, whatever the hell you want to call it, scene, and he fit right in. And he released a string of albums in like the mid-late 80s, early 90s that were just as viable and enjoyable as a lot of the other bands like, Motley Crue, Dokken, Poison, blah, 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 all these other bands. And he has been riding that wave ever since, which is good. So good choice. I like that tune a lot. It's a really good tune. So what is it, number 4? So number 4 for me, back to the Killer album again. Holy moly. I am working Killer to death here today.
You are working it.
Mike already named this one, Halo of Flies. That's my number 4. I totally dig that song a lot. Again, another one of those kind of really creepy, morbid type of tunes, but just worked. What I always loved about those early Alice Cooper tunes is that some of them were morbid and just, ominous sounding, but yet they were catchy and memorable, and they have there's pop elements buried in a lot of those tunes.
Yeah, and I like that song Halo of Flies has an interesting form. There's a lot of changes, a lot of things that depart from just the standard verse, chorus. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about Alice Cooper and the writing of a lot of these tunes is that even though he fit in a certain hard rock genre and the hair band or the glam rock or whatever you want to classify it as, there was a lot more to it, or to his band and his writing, and evidenced by some of these songs that put him in a different category.
Yeah.
He just, you could hear the influences of Zappa and other bands of the 70s when you listen to some of these things.
Show tunes, old school rock and roll, glam. I mean, there was all sorts of different elements.
Yeah, and
every album is full of variety.
I'll get to some of those things in a minute too when I talk about another obscure song. I don't have my note here, but I had a note about his influences, which included like the Yardbirds and those.
He was a big Yardbirds
and
the
Beatles.
And the Beatles,
yeah. So, anyway,
cool.
That's for a different story.
That's right.
So where we're at, number
3.
Number 3. Oh, I have to go back to probably "Muscle of Love," and I'll pick the title tune, which is the last studio effort by the Alice Cooper the band.
Great tune. That's
my
favorite song on that album. Yeah. Another underrated album. That's you listen to that album today, and it's not quite as full of instantly memorable tunes like $1 Billion Baby is, the album that came before it. But it's still, if you give it a little time, it's actually pretty.
There's some good writing.
Yeah, there really is, and there's a lot of talk about how the band put that album together very, very quickly. And again, there was a lot going on behind the scenes at the time. You had Glenn Buxton, the guitar player, was a mess as far as substance abuse and things like that. And Alice was drinking up a storm at the time. So a band that's kind of like busting apart the seams. But when you think about all that was going on, and you actually go and revisit and listen to "Muscle of Love," pretty strong album that I think wasn't really accepted by the general public because it wasn't full of all the hits that all those albums were beforehand. And then the band just blew apart, and that was that. But again, if the James Bond tune would have happened and wound its way into the movie and released as a single, would they have kept it together? Nobody knows.
That's a great point. Great point.
Nobody knows. So, all right, my number 3. Already mentioned by Mike from $1 Billion Babies, Elected.
Ah.
Love it. Classic tune.
Interesting that we have intersected quite a bit on this these picks. And again, as I mentioned in the top of the show, this was a very difficult task. Not quite as difficult as the Frank Zappa show that we did, but
there's a wealth of material.
Exactly.
I mean, much material.
And Alice Cooper, the showman, I've never seen him or the band live. You have.
Yeah, just once.
And I've heard, though, that people rave about, his theatrics and just the showmanship of the band in general and all the props and the stage imagery. And
it's an experience. It is. It really is. You're going to see a show.
Rock opera.
It's like going. I mean, he's always said it's like going to one of my shows is like going to a Broadway production. It's what it's like. I mean, there's props and they bring the guillotine and all this. I mean, there's all this stuff going on. The dancers and it's a lot of fun. Pyrotechnics and all that kind of stuff. I saw him the one and only time I got to see him, and I'm hopefully going to see him this summer up here in Bethel Woods, up here in Bethel, New York. But I saw him in New York City at the Beacon Theater, when did you say that clip was from? 2014?
2013.
13. So I saw him 2013, 2014 in New York City at the Beacon Theater. It was my first time seeing him, and I had a blast, an absolute blast. And I was like, my God, this guy, and at the time he was 67 years old or something like that. I'm like, he still can bring it. He still sounds good. He's in shape. The band is great. They had like I said, all the special effects and the props and the dancers and the lighting and the explosions. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So I urge any of you, if you haven't seen Alice Cooper live, do it while he's still around. I'm telling you.
That's something that we should do together in August.
Yeah, I think we're going to do that. Yeah,
we should do that.
Yeah, we're going to do that.
That'd be kind of fun.
Number 2, we're getting down to the weeds here.
So now, you're probably going to laugh at this pick, but I would not be able to call myself a jazz guy if I found something jazzy in somebody's repertoire and I didn't talk about it. So let's face it, this is probably not anybody else's favorite or anybody else's top 10.
You never know.
I would be surprised, I would have to say, but I'm going with, from Muscle of Love, Crazy Little Child, which is a jazzy, New Orleans type fun thing. We just got off listening to a whole bunch of Mardi Gras music last week, and I've got that fun...
it's in your brain, right?
Fun little New Orleans style march beat in my brain. And I tell you, another song, about death. and creepy, they killed the kid, and it's this song about he's never going to see the world for what it is, and he hung around with the winos, and in his dying breath he says, the winos were right. There you go. So I had to pick that just because it incorporated jazz into this macabre presentation, yeah.
That's a oddball, but great pick. So all of you who are like, yes, Mike, I'm so happy you picked that, raise your hand. We want to hear it in the comments, all right? Because I love when people call out great picks when we do these type of shows, because there is always someone out there that is completely in agreement on an oddball pick. I know I've done it many times where I pick stuff in my top 3 or 5 on some band or whatever, and I'm thinking, God, there's going to be nobody that's going to agree with this shit that I'm talking about here. And there's always someone, yes, Pete, totally with you on that one. So there's going to be some guys who are going to be like, Mike, best pick ever. So don't be shy. So we'll see.
All right, let's hear from you.
Yeah. All right. So my number 2, these top 2 songs are big time favorites of mine. From the Welcome to My Nightmare album, The Black Widow, as we hear Vincent Price talking in the background. Love it. Love it. And I think as much as I love the studio version, I even like it better. If I don't know if you ever saw the old concert film that they did in 76, 5, I don't remember the year, where he had Steve Hunter and Dick Wagner on co-lead guitars, and the two of them just play these like dueling guitar solos leading into the Black Widow song, and then just like Alice comes out, and it's just mind blowingly good. And I remember as a kid seeing that on like late night TV. You remember back in the old days when you first got cable, they would show like concert films on like USA Network or whatever. Yeah. I remember staying up late one night and watching like that the Frank
Zappa. Don Kirshner's rock concert.
Well, that and they had another. They had on USA.
That's even bad. That's before cable.
But that's even better. Don Kirshner's rock concert is like the best stuff ever. But because the bands would come on there and play that stuff live. Yeah. But they had on USA Network, they would play like concert films late at night on like Friday night or Saturday night. So one night I stayed up late and I watched the Alice Cooper movie from that tour. And I remember seeing, they had like the big fake Black Widow on stage, and you see these two guitar players just going berserk on there, and I'm like, holy crap, this is great. So anyway, all these years later, I still get turned on by the Black Widow. I love it. And I'm a big horror movie guy, and I just love the fact that Vincent Price was involved with all this. And so anyway, that's my number 2 pick.
Awesome pick. Yeah. Awesome pick. All right, so here we are. We're
number 1.
We're down to the end.
The big kahunas. Okay.
Well, you're going to think that I'm being a child of the 70s, that I'm going to
you might think
I'm going to pick something from that era. And I'm not.
Okay.
I'm going out on a limb here.
Okay. Limb is good.
And I'm going to pick as my number 1 Alice Cooper song from 1991's Hey Stupid.
I love that album.
Feed My Frankenstein.
Ah, yes!
Featuring Joe Satriani and Steve Vai. Talking about dueling guitars.
Yes.
And wow, is that just a cool song. It makes a great movie, motion picture video. And
yes.
I can't say enough about it. It hit me on so many different levels. I really
I knew there's a reason I like you so much, okay? So that's a great song. And I like that album a lot. I think the Hey Stupid album is really good. That song was in my top 10. It was like one of the first ones I added to it because I love it. And then the more I started going through all the albums and all the songs that I really like, I'm like, oh my God. Part of me was like, is it Sick Things or Feed My Frankenstein? Like what, I went with Sick Things, but Feed My Frankenstein, it's in my honorable mentions. It was in my top 10. I love it. And it probably, if I was to say, like right this minute, that would be my number 11. And on any given day, Feed My Frankenstein is a top 5 song because I think it's great. And as great as the studio version is, they kill that on stage. In a major way. I mean, they played that live when I saw them, and I was like, this song rules. Not just because it's a great song, not just because, I'm a big old school Universal horror fan, and I love Frankenstein and Dracula and the Wolfman, all that kind of nonsense, but you're absolutely right with the dueling guitars, the Satch and Vi. That is so cool you picked that as your number 1. I love it. Love it.
Thank you.
Love it. Now it makes me feel bad that I booted it out of mine because it should have been in there. A great song. And I'll tell you, we're talking a lot of 70s stuff here today, but do not think that either myself or Mike don't appreciate the 80s and 90s and the 2000 material because I absolutely love a lot of that stuff. It's just, this guy's got an enormous discography full of great songs. And, it's just so hard to squeeze everything into a top 10. I mean, I want to throw a shout out. I'll get to my number 1 in a second, but I want to throw out a shout out to the song Brutal Planet from the Brutal Planet album, which came out in, 99 or 2000, something like that. And that also kind of hits me like Feed My Frankenstein. It's just that kind of great, 90s plus good hard rock metal tune that's just really works on every level. So anyway, my number 1, back to the lurid and kind of creepy crap because I'm
not surprised.
No, I mean, it's littered in my top 10. Going way back to the Love It to Death album, which, again, I love to death. The Ballad of Dwight Fry.
Oh.
Yeah. Again, another song that just came to life on stage. And I think a lot of these songs really spoke to me more as I started to, went to see him live and I started to watch a lot of Alice Cooper videos, on DVD, Blu-ray, or on YouTube. And you would see these songs reenacted live on stage, and you're like, oh my God, how cool is this? It's like a little mini movie within their stage show. Mm-hmm. And I think that the Ballad of Dwight Fry, I love the chorus. I love the just creepy vibe of the whole thing. It's just such an excellent tune, and it's kind of my favorite Alice Cooper song for a good long time, and from an album that I really love a lot. So that's it. Alice here.
Very cool.
So that's it, man. Should we do some honorable mentions? Yeah.
Yeah, I have probably a couple here that more than a couple.
Yeah.
From 1973.
A good year.
I'll bite your face off. I'll bite your face off. What?
Exactly. Like, who's singing about that kind of stuff back then, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, I had to mention that. That's just such a cool lyric, and the way it comes about in the song, and it's very catchy. It's very hooky. It's a cool hook. I love that. What else did I have as an honorable mention? From more House of Fire. I'm going to build a house of fire. That's another one. Also from Welcome to My Nightmare 2, the second version of it. An honorable mention, The Underture.
That's a good
which
tune.
I think is like his tribute to prog rock kind of a song.
Yeah. Which he always had a liking for.
Yeah, he kind of dabbles in different. Like I said, you can't really pigeonhole him into just the dark makeup and the Elvira type get up.
The gothic type.
The goth. Yeah, he's not all about. It's not all about that. So.
That's actually
to be diverse.
That's a good album, The Welcome to My Nightmare, the second album. One? Yeah, I one of my honorable mentions from that album was, and I like the whole album, but I really like, it's kind of a different tune for him, and it's kind of really accessible. That song, What Baby Wants, where he's got that female singer on there. It's just like a silly, catchy tune. What baby wants, baby gets. Like I don't know. I always liked it. It's a good one.
Would have to mention also from the first Welcome to My Nightmare. That whole sequence, the dream sequence, and he's got a song in there, Steven.
Oh, Steven, that's on my list.
It's creepy, and it's just, and they're just probably going to be people that say, well, you didn't really pick any from that album. Well, there's just so many you can pick, and I try to be as diverse as possible, but stylistically.
Food. I mean, Devil's Food kind of goes right into the Black Widow, and I felt bad about just not. And I've done this before. I think I did this on in the Frank Zappa show. Is that there's some songs that just kind of segue into the next, and it's almost like you have to take them as a whole. And I almost did that with Devil's Food and the Black Widow, but I was like, I won't do that today. But yeah, there's so many good things. How about Department of Youth from Welcome to My Nightmare? Another great tune.
Yeah.
Escape. I got a bunch of things from Muscle of Love written down here. You mentioned a couple. How about Teenage Lament 74? It's a great tune.
Big Apple Dreamin'.
Yeah, great song.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
How about Hello Hooray from, Billion Dollar Babies? I didn't write that song, but it's still a great tune. Raped and Freezing, Unfinished Sweet. From School's Out, Looney Tune, Gutter Cat versus the Jets, My Stars, Public Animal number 9. That was in my early top 10. From Killer, Be My Lover. And Desperado. Desperado's a great tune. What else? Caught in a Dream, Long Way to Go, Black Juju, Hallowed Be Thy Name. That probably should have been in my top 10. To go along with all the nasty
But how many top 10s can you pick? I really appreciate the fact, my friend, that you did not cheat today.
I didn't cheat.
I was the only cheater.
I did not cheat at all today.
One cheat song, so actually I had 11.
I was good today.
You were absolutely phenomenal.
So. I can't guarantee I won't do it the next time. Well, but because I cheated a lot in the Frank Zappa show.
Absolutely,
I cheated a bit in the. I cheated a lot in the Steely Dan show. I didn't cheat at all today, and I could have.
Did I make you feel guilty about that? Is that why?
I think deep down inside I'm like, all right, you got to keep this. Mike gave me an out and suggesting we do a top 5 and then a top 10, and I was like, all right, if I cheat too much, I'm gonna look like a real scumbag. So I was like, all right. So anyway, that's our fun with Alice Cooper.
Thank you for that. That was awesome.
It was good. Yeah, and it's again what's great for us doing these shows is not only, that we get to present this to you, but I think for us it's a lot of fun to go back and do the research and re-listen to a lot of this stuff and try to kind of put something like this together, which ultimately just leads us to listening to the artist's music then again, right? That's what it's all about, because, in most cases, some of us have emotional investments to a lot of these songs, and there's so many great ones. So it's really hard to just say, I'm going to pick my 10 favorite Alice Cooper songs. I mean, there's so many. And if you've been listening and following and loving this artist's music for so many years, that's a really hard thing to do. So just so you guys understand, it's every one of these episodes, whether I'm, Mike and I are doing it together, I'm doing it by myself, or I'm doing it with Chris Allo, whoever else, may guest on this show. This is a lot of work goes into these, because it's like, it's just not, you don't just blink and say, okay, I instantly know what my 10 favorite songs are going to be in my top albums, right? It's a lot of like inner thinking that goes on here. You have to go back and revisit the albums and the songs, and really, it's like, well, how much do these mean to me? Which songs mean more to me than others? Which ones make more of a statement to me? And, Mike brings up some good points too, again, because everybody's different in how you look at this stuff. And, with Mike, it's like he coming from a really big jazz background, so there's some stuff that's going to really speak to him more than it might to me, who comes from more of a hard rock and metal background. Okay, and that's the great thing about this, and that's why I always like bringing him on the show, because we have such varied and different musical appreciations and backgrounds. It brings different flavors and elements to this show, which I think you guys all seem to appreciate as well. So that's it. So again, your homework is to put your top 10 Alice Cooper solo, Alice Cooper band. You can put them all together. You can split them up, whatever you want to do. We want to hear and see what your favorites are. So we'll see how different you guys are from us. Remember, nobody's picks are wrong or incorrect, all that kind of stuff. This is all a matter of opinion. This is not meant to be the definitive list of what the best Alice Cooper songs are, right? This is just what we like, okay? So, and we'll leave it at that. So, Mike, thanks again, my friend. Appreciate it. He's coming back Pete. Again. So, just to give you guys some news about upcoming shows. So we've got, weather permitting tomorrow, but we've got Nick Franco coming on the show. We're going to do a top 10 Iron Maiden songs. Chris Allo is coming on the show. We're going to do a top 10 Ronnie James Dio songs, Dio the band. Mike and I are going to do, in a couple of weeks, a Doobie Brothers show. We are talking about doing something with Miles Davis. I know there's been a lot of interest in that. We are also talking about revisiting.
Oh, you're going to give it all away?
No, I'm not going to give that away.
No.
I'm sorry. There's a third one that I'm not going to give away yet. But, again, I've got my list of things to cover on the show is just so ridiculously long that it's nice to have every now and then, someone to help out and join in on the fun. So
pleasure to be here.
So, so thanks again, Mike, and thanks for having us here at the brewery at Orange County Hops. Again, the address here. Talk a little bit about the beer. So we're drinking
771 Route 52, Walden, New York.
Walden, New York, a great place.
586.
Live music almost every weekend. He's got 8 beers on tap, 9 beers on tap. What do you got?
Yeah, I got 8 on there right now, and 2 sodas.
2 sodas, and we got some bourbon drinks here too, and wine, local wines also.
And our slogan is "From Farm to Glass."
Farm to Glass.
Brewed with local hops and grains, and I do mean local. All our ingredients are grown right here in Orange County.
Right on his property, actually.
Well, we grow our own hops, and we buy the malt from Black Dirt Malt Company in Pine Island, New York, and they do an excellent job with malting barley. Great product. So come by and try some fresh beer.
Listen to some great music.
Fresher than this.
Live music every weekend for the most part, and what we've been doing lately, especially when Mike and I do a show together, is we will play the show here live while people are here. It prompts a lot of discussion. Mike has been throwing it so when we did the Frank Zappa show, we actually recorded early in the day. We played the video on the big screen of us in the show, and then we played videos of Frank Zappa all day, all night long. And we're probably going to do a little bit of that tonight with Alice Cooper. So it's fun. It gets people talking and about music, and that's what it's all about. So, and today we're drinking your new Jackass Ale. So it's kind of like a pale ale, very tasty. I'm digging a lot. Reminds me of some good old Sierra Nevada from out west. And come by. All right. Well, we'll see you guys again real soon. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. Check us out on Facebook. We've got polls going every day. Right now, we're in the middle of classic debut and sophomore releases from a lot of legendary bands. We're on Twitter. Follow us there. But we're here each and every week, multiple times per week on YouTube. So make sure you like us, tell your friends, come back often, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
So long.